Masada wants to create the kind of space sandbox I could lose myself in for hundreds of hours. It's set inside an enormous isolated nebula where humanity has been trapped for thousands of years. Traders haul cargo, miners search for resources, and rival cultures fight for control, with or without you. My name is Tom, and here at LT Gaming we're two brothers exploring the most interesting games around. So if you want more space on your feed, give this video a like. Alright, I've been playing Masada's current developer build, and it's worth stressing that this isn't even an alpha build yet, so this isn't a review where I'm judging balance or polish, because right now that'd be frankly ridiculous. Instead, I want to show you what Masada currently feels like to play, why I think its potential is considerable, and what developers need to get right if this ambitious living sandbox is going to work. So when I loaded the game up, Masada dropped me straight into an open space map, and that already felt atmospheric and I gotta say slightly ethereal. The homeworld influence to me was immediately obvious. The gameplay is handled strategically through a system map that you zoom out to, and ship sensors, rather than directly piloting a vessel. In this build, I began with 2 mining ships and a support frigate. The basic loop was to locate asteroid clusters, gather resources, expand my fleet, and eventually fight the other factions operating nearby. Now, the mining loop is only one part of the intended sandbox, however the full game is promising paths built around trading, piracy, industry, and commanding enormous armadas. The available area was massive, it seemed, but activities were understandably quite limited. I could already see the pieces of a larger idea taking shape though. In terms of current feel, imagine something between Homeworld and Era 1, with the ambition eventually surrounding that strategy foundation, mixed in with RPG progression and a proper open world sandbox. I gotta say though, the moment this game's potential really clicked for me was opening up its ship designer. There were enough modules waiting inside to awaken some very old memories of designing my ships in Space Empires 4, so let's get into that. Now, as I said, the most exciting system for me so far is Masada's ship designer. There was an immense selection of hulls, turrets and internal modules covering everything from armour and heat sinks to mining lasers, missiles and projectile weapons. It gave me strong EVE Online vibes, which after more than a decade playing that game is very much a compliment. Individual hulls provide bonuses towards certain roles, but they don't appear to lock you into them, so I saw nothing stopping me from creating a capital class mining vessel, or turning a smaller industrial ship into something a little bit dangerous. And that freedom is exactly the sort of thing sandbox players will want to experiment with, and of course inevitably abuse in marvellous ways. There are also deeper systems governing crew, fuel and functionality of certain areas such as engineering, although I still haven't fully wrapped my head around these yet. Once you've gathered the resources you need, your save designs can be constructed and added into your fleet, combining this customization with a very much living sandbox vibe, and it gives Masada enormous potential. You could quite literally consume hundreds of hours through designing, testing, and then probably redesigning every ship you've made. A quick interlude to say, if finding amazing games for your wishlist or to play is your kind of thing, consider subscribing to the channel. We're two brothers constantly looking for ambitious projects, and there's plenty to come on the way. Alright, I also wanted to mention that the ships themselves right now look excellent. You can clearly see the hard points and weapons attached to your designs, and while the broader art direction gives each vessel a strong industrial character feel, there's also a lovely sense of physicality. When ships dock, smaller craft actually enter the hangar bay of the larger vessel, rather than just disappearing somewhere, and it immediately creates the right sense of atmosphere. I think if they maintain this level of attention across the rest of the experience, all of these smaller details are going to speak to players who want to feel connected to the things they're created. Combat already looks like it could become a surprisingly complex endeavour, because weapons fitted to a ship need to suit the target it's actually fighting. A massive gun might be devastating to another capital vessel, but far less useful when a small ship is buzzing around like some sort of little mosquito. Battles currently feel very Homeworld-like. Fleet composition, formations, and positioning along the Z-axis all appear to matter, meaning your success doesn't simply come down to building the largest possible collection of guns, and I really like that angle. I'd love to tell you that I immediately mastered all of this and became the scourge of the nebula, but in reality I spent a reasonable amount of time being comprehensively dismantled by the computer, and that was fun in itself. The eventual ambition here though is enormous. Different factions are intended to field their own ships and tactics, with encounters ranging from individual duels to battles involving loads of vessels on each side. It's far too early for me to judge the balance or controls, but this is one area I'm going to say that Masada absolutely needs to get right. The interface needs to remain clear and controls intuitive when battles reach a certain scale. The underlying complexity is exciting, but players still need to understand and command it once the sandbox becomes properly enormous. Masada's greatest challenge is also going to be what makes it so exciting. There are a huge amount of systems at play here, and they're all going to need to speak to and meaningfully affect one another. I don't think this necessarily makes the game too complex, but it is undoubtedly aiming for a deeper take on the genre. So that means tutorials and UI clarity will be utterly vital. So players need to understand what is happening without being greeted by an interface with a million different buttons on it. Encouragingly, the devs are already looking to run playtests, get a demo out, and are asking creators like myself for honest feedback, and that's exactly how an ambitious game like this should be developed. Now, they promised a continuous map measuring 5,000 by 5,000 kilometers, with ships and pilots continuing on whether you're there or not. Traders are going to move cargo, miners are going to gather resources, and it means you could stumble across a wreckage of a battle you never even witnessed, and I love this. Making that scale feel purposeful though is no small challenge. The sandbox must balance the ethereal loneliness of space with enough activity to make exploration worthwhile. And that may sound contradictory, but if you played a great space game, you're going to know exactly what I mean. Space should feel vast and isolated without ever feeling lifeless. The ship designer has given me the most confidence so far. If that level of freedom can connect with the wider world, Masada could become exactly the sort of game I've been looking for since Homeworld. So, should you wishlist Masada? If you enjoy space RTS games, fleet customization, or even an open world space sandbox, then absolutely. Just understand this isn't aiming to be a casual stroll through the nebula. Masada wants you to learn its systems, design specialized ships, and think carefully about how your fleet is going to operate. The DNA and skeleton of that experience are already here. What comes next is refinement, content, and maybe most importantly, connecting these individual systems into the sandbox so everything you're doing feels like it has an impact. Luke and I are going to be keeping tabs on this game and diving into the co-op build they just released to properly test out everything about it. Although the element I'm most excited to get hold of is the complete open world sandbox experience. This is where it all either comes together or drifts quietly off into space. For now, Masada's moved from promising project onto my wishlist to watch. I want to hear from you guys as well though. What does this absolutely have to get right to be amazing? And feel free to subscribe if you want to keep tabs on this project. Alright guys, I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye now.